All right. I have been taking mad notes because the Old Testament is no joke. I just finished it. The Old Testament prophets, I think, are what I owe you. I read everything from Isaiah to Malachi, and I have got to say, there is a pattern. Every stinking prophet, Jeremiah, has a great story I would really like to share. It kind of encapsulates all of the other prophets. So this is right before the Babylon Empire comes in, ravages the entire town and takes all of the Israelites away to Babylon. Mad conquering. So Jeremiah has a bunch of leaders from Israel come to him and say, hey, listen, we realize that we're in a little bit of trouble. Looks like Babylon is taking over the world. Tell us what to do. We'll do anything you say because we know that you talk to God. And so Jeremiah goes away and he waits for God to speak to him, which he does. And God himself is like, you're not going to listen to me. This is my answer to you. You will not listen to me. But if you want to survive, do not, under any circumstances, go to Egypt. You will die by the sword. They will destroy you. You will be crushed if you go to Egypt. What do? No. Even God was like, you're not going to even do any of what I say because you guys are too rebellious. You're too full of yourself. So why should I even bother? But here you go. Here's what you should do. So he tells them anyway. So this is where you go, okay, he knows their heart, but he also doesn't want them to die by the sword. He doesn't want them to be destroyed. And of course what happens, Babylon takes over Egypt and they pretty much wipe out everything in their way. And a remnant is always left because God loves them so much that he's like, I can't totally get rid of you. So that's the other theme that I've been seeing. God is super angry, but he's totally in love. He's totally in love with Israel, his people. He keeps calling them a harlot, and I think in 21st century terms, that would be more like slut, because she goes around sleeping around with people, and he even says, but you don't even ask for money. Being married, he calls himself at least one time their husband. And if I were married to somebody like that, yeah, I would be pretty pissed. Doesn't matter how in love I am, I would be really angry. The other thing I noticed is that all of these Old Testament prophets are, all of the Old Testament books are all out of order. They're completely out of order. I should have been there at the Council of Nicaea when they were deciding which books go where. Because Nehemiah, Esther, and Ezra and all of these other people were placed way before the Psalms, way before the Proverbs. And this was then Proverbs and Psalms comes, and that's like David Solomon. Okay, Nehemiah and Esther and all of these other people are during the Babylonian and Persian empires. Okay? So that you can follow me, I feel like I totally lost you. What happened was Abraham left his land. It's called the land of the Chaldeans, interestingly enough. And he comes out of the land and he goes to a land called Canaan. This is what we now know as Israel, okay? But he lives there for a long time as a stranger, and then he goes, he has children, okay? So they're having children, and then this huge famine hits, and luckily, Joseph was sold by his brothers to the Egyptian ruler, who then interprets the dream of the king and says, listen, there's going to be a huge famine. We have to save the world, okay? So the next thing that happens is all of Joseph's family, they all transplanted. They all came out of Canaan and they went to Egypt to live, okay? I think in a place called Goshen, okay? Okay, good. So then, and it's even prophesied, okay, you'll be fine, but your people are going to be slaves for 400 years. So he sends Moses, and Moses takes them out of Egypt. They end up again in the promised land where they conquer and they slay and they take over, and then they divvy up the territories to each tribe, the 12 tribes which are the sons of Jacob. Okay, so they're living happily, but God had told them, hey, you have to kill everybody and everything in the land. Don't leave any survivors. And I actually had a problem with that before I realized what was going on. Okay. God has a thing where when people sin a lot, he's like, you gotta go. I can't have this. I can't have this. This is too much. This is too yucky. He still is that way today, according to our prophets that I just got through. Now in the promised land, and they did not kill everybody. They left a ton of survivors and started marrying them. Pretty much this is when they turned into a slut. So they are worshiping other people's gods, and they are making sacrifices, many human sacrifices to, again, at least one god is mentioned, the god Molech. I mentioned this in my other videos. Go back, go watch my other videos. You're missing out. Slutty Israel is worshiping the gods of the people that they didn't kill. And God is like, okay, really, you just want to like take them by the collar and shake them a little? But nothing happens. Actually, I think God does do this. He does! In several passages, he's just like, you guys are really frustrating me. I'm going to send a plague. You guys are really frustrating me. I'm going to send locusts to eat all your crops so you have no food. I'm going to send famine so you have no food. According to the prophets, it doesn't matter what you threaten them with. They're not going to listen. Where am I? Okay, so this king, Nebuchadnezzar, pretty much invades the land, takes everybody away, and we get to know him a little in the book of Daniel. And we also kind of learn that he's a little off his rocker. I can't read every single passage that was interesting to me because we'd be here forever. But I'm pretty sure he legit was like, if there were psychiatrists back then, there would be a problem. And there is even a part where God says it's because of his pride that he ends up like a wild animal eating grass for like 7 years. But honestly, I think he was like teetering on the edge of just that pretty much his whole life, pretty much the entire time. So there is actually a ton in Daniel and all the other prophets that I was like, I have no idea what that means. I did write things down in my journal, my mad notes, and a ton of margin notes in my Bible so I could go back and figure it out. Study. Okay, so mostly I gathered a few things. There's 3 things here. Here, 1. Israel would be punished and scattered. That was what the prophet... Number 2, the Messiah was coming and he was going to die as well as conquer the world, which I'm sure made everybody else go, what? And a lot of times it was like one verse says he's going to die and then the next verse says he's going to take over the world. So you start to understand a few things about the New Testament. And the temple would be, this is number 3, temple would be destroyed, but that God would also inhabit it in Jerusalem forever. I want to tell you my personal conclusions. I am not a theologian, but logic totally dictates my brain. So here's the thing. Ezekiel has this whole thing at the end with measurements and everything, chapters and chapters of a temple that is to be built that has not been built yet. A lot of people are like, yeah, but it could be symbolic. And I say, yeah, but nothing else in the Old Testament prophets was symbolic. It was all literal. They said the Messiah would suffer the death penalty. He would come out of Bethlehem. It says that he would ride into Jerusalem on a donkey. It says tons of stuff that happened word for word. So logic, again, dictates my brain. I would say that whatever these prophets say are likely literal, okay? So Ezekiel is describing a temple that's never been built. Minutes later, I guess hours, because it takes a really long time to read the Bible, Daniel describes what most people agree is the Antichrist, and he describes a moment where the abomination of desolation, try to say that 3 times fast, he takes away the sacrifices. So taking away the sacrifices assumes, of course, that there is a place in which they are making sacrifices. The Ezekiel chapters describe an altar and a mandate from God that they will make sacrifices. Interesting. Interesting to note, I did not see any sacrifices being made for atonement. I didn't even cover the scapegoat part for the atonement and the forgiveness of sins and all of this. But anyways, we have to move on. I can't hold your hand, you guys. And I also have read in Revelation the abomination of desolation, who is also known as the Antichrist, stops the daily sacrifices. And it also mentions the temple. The 2 witnesses will stand in the court of the temple. Okay? And, is it Zechariah? The 2 witnesses are also mentioned as the 2 olive trees. Whew. Okay. So all of that to say, I guess that means we're going to get a new temple in Jerusalem where sacrifices will be made, and then this Antichrist will come. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if you hear about a temple or plans for a temple, maybe start looking at the Bible literally. Or if it never happens, you can throw away my videos and ignore me for the rest of my life. Okay, Zechariah is my new favorite book. You guys, this is going to take way too long. Zechariah is my new... It has the coolest descriptions of Zion, of Jerusalem in all its glory when Jesus is there. It says 10 men will grasp the sleeve of a Jewish man, say, take me with you. We hear God is there. We hear God is with you. And old men and old women will sit around in the street. I mean, I'm imagining them sitting around in their loungy chairs with their lemonades, and each with his staff because of his great, great age, which I assume means that whoever survives the abomination of desolation, plus all of God's judgments and plagues and all of that, will not die, and they will get old and older and oldest and live really long, happy lives. It even says the little kids will be playing in the streets and filling the streets of Jerusalem. It says that there will be no wall because there will be so many people that they won't be able to justify having a wall because they won't fit. All the people won't fit. So all of those free borders people will be happy. I found out Malachi was the last prophet before John the Baptist. That 400 years went by after Malachi's prophecy, which was like right when they were building the second temple, which I figured out later. You guys, I did some research because I was like, but they built the new temple and all of these prophets are saying that Jesus is going to inhabit the temple, and then it's not there. And Jesus didn't inhabit it. He didn't sit on its throne there. So a Roman ruler crushed the city of Jerusalem and burned and massacred anything and everything in the temple and around the temple, and well, we've never seen it since. 400 years goes by and God gives Israel the cold shoulder. I mean, he's silent for 400 years. And then you think that when a prophet finally arises, in John the Baptist, that they would perk up their ears. Every prophet is rejected. Interesting stuff. Okay, you guys, so this is the video for today. I do now have a YouTube channel, so if you're interested or you care, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so that you get the next videos. I'm still in reading the Bible in 30 days, which humbly I say it's going to end up being more like 40. I'm a busy lady. So click the subscribe button so that we can keep going. Next up is the Gospels. If you love Jesus, you love the Gospels.